can you help us understand what a narrative is and how that plays into nervous system activation?
Yes, when I was writing the book, I noticed something. As a teacher, I'm really into the brain. And I noticed that polyvagal was all about this nervous system. And I'm thinking, but where's the brain in all this? And how is this all connecting? I mean, there's the physical way of how it's connecting at the brainstem, but I was looking at all that I knew about growth mindsets and cognitive flow theory. And we teachers, we like the brain. We're into it. And when I would talk to people about the expression that story follows state, some of my colleagues would say, I don't know about that, because sometimes I think something in my head and then I start creating this whole activation of my nervous system. So it became a chicken and egg argument. And I know that the polyvagal people really feel strongly that everything starts in the autonomic nervous system, and that could be completely accurate. However, for those of us who tend to like the brain and our minds, I felt like in the book I needed to connect the two more. So I came up with this cognitive behavior loop, so this cognitive autonomic nervous system loop, because it's bidirectional. Dr. Porges will say that it's a bidirectional loop. So we can think some things and create the nervous system response, and the nervous system response can also create our stories. And what happens is the nervous system is looking to figure out and make sense of what it's feeling. So if I'm starting to get really anxious about something, my brain, my mind's going to start saying, oh, you're anxious because of X, Y, or Z is happening. You send an email off, you don't get it back, it's kind of charged, and you start feeling that anxiety around it, right? You start going, should I even have sent that? And oh my gosh, and you're waiting and waiting. And finally you hear, and it just turns out they're on vacation for a week. And then you get back to you. And meanwhile, you've created this whole sympathetic nervous energy response because of the story your mind has told you. And in schools and classrooms, when I'm working with my readers, that is a huge part, and I think we need to address it, is we have to address the narrative, because I work a lot with middle school and high school, and by then they've been failing and failing. So their story is, why bother? I can't read. Everybody's tried to teach me to read and I can't do it. I can't sit still. I have ADHD. Why bother? The stories that they tell themselves is pretty strong. And so I needed to find a way to organize the story. And so I used what I used in my doctoral dissertation. It sounds really complicated, but it's not. It's a process called causal layered analysis, and it's a futures methodology. And in future studies, we say, what do we want to do today to create the future we want tomorrow? And I work a lot with students with, you can have a preferred future. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters where you're coming from now, and it matters your home life and all of that. But I've always worked in high poverty schools. And I say, and what do you want to do tomorrow? What does your future look like? And sometimes students don't realize that they can have a preferred future. They can work toward a goal or goals, and they can change where they've come from.
Yeah, every micro school, like the first day or 2 or 3 days, we'll do what's called the Future Me activity, where we make some sort of like a drawing or a vision board or a sculpture or something like that about what that future for them looks like, to try to tie their daily activities into that preferred future. And I really love that phrase. Thank you for sharing that with us, the preferred future, because it's like, you don't control the future. There's going to be lots of things that happen, but it's okay for you to have this hope, right? And a lot of our motivation and drive and how much effort we're willing to put into our learning really is determined by how likely we think that preferred outcome is, and if it's tied to our efforts. So we're in complete alignment.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you're creating little futurists out of the students too. Mm-hmm. And they're starting to realize that they do have some say in what's going to go on in their future, even with the randomness of future. And for them to understand their future, they have to understand, what are their myths? What are their beliefs and their assumptions? So an interesting thing that you could add is, if you're working on myths you could, or metaphor. You can say, what's your metaphor for your future? What is it that you're like? When I'm doing collaboration workshops, a lot of times the metaphor would be something like, it's like pushing water uphill, like to get everybody with time constraints in the same room to talk about something. So when we change the metaphor, we also change our beliefs and our worldviews. And then that on top, the next, it's like layers, right? Tip of the iceberg is your narrative. And then as you move down, how does your system support or limit your narrative? So in what you're doing in your micro schools, you've developed this wonderful system that's supporting their narrative. If their narrative is, I love learning, I love coming to school, whatever, your system's supporting that, right? In all that you're doing. And then the next layer is, what are my assumptions and my beliefs, my worldviews around this? I can learn this content. I can build this project. By the end of the day, I can have this project that I'm asked to do, and I'm excited about it because that project leads me to my preferred future. And the deepest layer are our myths, our stories, our our metaphors. And when that deep layer changes everything, like, and becomes more aligned with the preferred future, everything else above it starts to change as well.